Hey, everybody. Carrie Schaefer here, also known as Carrie Ann King, with another episode of Tell Me Your Secrets, which is part of the very awesome Authors on the Air Global Radio Network. And I am really, really excited to have Nina Sadowsky here with us today. Now, Nina is an amazing author with a bunch of books out in the world, and she is also a movie producer, a screenwriter, an educator. She has all kinds of hats that she wears. So I know I've got tons of questions for her today. Hi, Nina.
Hi, thanks for having me, Carrie.
Hey, I'm so delighted. Where are you at in the world?
I'm in Los Angeles. I'm a native New Yorker, but I live in LA, and I'm in my house like all the rest of us, Los Angelinos.
Right. Oh, it's crazy. All of the being stuck in the... For me, it's not so, like I live in a very small Townsville, so out of town, actually, we're really rural. So we've been really lucky about not to have too many cases, and I hardly go over anywhere anyway. It's not been so bad, but it's got to be crazy in the city.
Yeah, it's challenging, but you know, I've become very happy with my narrow world where I, commute from the bedroom to what was my stepdaughter's bedroom to work, and that's that's my day.
Right. And so you've converted little space for yourself to do your work at home.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have pets that are intruding in your Zoom calls?
Well, no, we have a 14-year-old pug, so he's super cute, but he's 14 and sleeps most of the day. And I have tried to pick him up and put him on my lap and bring him into a Zoom call a couple of times, and he's just not having it. So, so I've given up on that. I'm not going to torture the poor dog.
No, poor puppy. So bringing a book out during COVID has been really weird for a lot of people. Did your deadline, or not your deadline, but your release date get changed? Or
no, actually, I actually heard on my pub date that was the single largest number of books ever released in a single day last Tuesday, August 4th, which was also my pub date. And I heard that was because so many other releases had been pushed. But my date had always been August 4th. I had another book which was released in January. So this one was sort of hot on the heels of that, for various reasons. But we didn't move off the date. And it did present and has presented a lot of challenges, but I also think it's presented a lot of opportunities. And people seem to be loving the book, so that makes me happy.
Yeah. Oh, and that's a good thing. I love the book too. Let's talk about the book. I'm seeing like that awesome cover hiding behind you. Can you show us one for the people who are on videos so we can actually?
Sure. So this is my latest book. It's called Convince Me. The dedication, I'm going to say this in a family-friendly way. But the dedication is that this book is for everyone who's sick and tired of the bleeping liars and their bleeping lies.
Right. And it doesn't say bleeping in the book.
So I'm very candid about this. It was a rage-fueled writing process. And in some ways, the most fun I've ever had writing. And even though it was rage-fueled, the process of creating it, I really hope that the reading of it is pure pleasure. It's designed to be speedy and to keep twisting a lens in a way that's surprising. And I hope that it also leaves readers asking themselves questions about what their personal relationships are to lying, and do they accept information differently if it's from someone they love or someone they find charismatic? Does that affect how they receive information? Or, we're all comfortable with the tactful white lie, but where are our own personal lies about what lies we can and cannot tell? So I hope that it operates on both levels, that it's just a pure thrill ride of fun, and that also maybe at the end you ask yourself some questions.
Well, and there are lots of questions as you go, because it it does revolve around the lies that we allow ourselves to be told, the lies that people tell, the different levels of lying. Can you give us a little plot summary as well? Like what?
Sure. So as I said, the book was fueled by rage, and it was fueled by my rage about what pathological lying is doing to this culture. We live in a time where, with alternative facts and science is under attack, and where just basic honesty and integrity seem to be old-fashioned, right? And that just sort of really made me angry. So I wanted to think about, because I'm a psychological thriller writer, I wanted to think, well, what makes a sociopath in the age of untruth? And then I began to create this character of a liar. And once I did, I knew that it would be really, really cathartic for me if I killed him. So I did. And so it's not a spoiler because the book opens at his funeral. And which was really two reasons. One, it was really cathartic to kill this man.
Yeah.
I felt really good afterwards. But also because I didn't want him to be able to deflect or defend himself, as the people closest to him, and the perspectives of the book are his widow, his best friend, who was also his business partner, and his mother, as they came to terms with who he was. I didn't want them to have him to have the opportunity to spin that lens and, talk himself out of it again.
And we get the perspectives of all three of them. So from the very beginning, in alternating chapters, we get this lovely look at the different reality from everybody's point of view, which must have been fun to write too.
Well, it was. I mean, it's interesting because I do believe that there's never one absolute truth, right? And because perspective shapes everything. So when I set out to write a book about a liar and lying and how we lie to ourselves, which is another really important component of it, which is something I think a lot of women in particular do, and particular in romantic relationships. They see what they want to see, and if there are things that aren't consistent with that image, they dismiss them as opposed to evaluating them. I mean, I've done this. Every girl I know has done this, right? So I feel like that I wanted to talk about this sort of larger issue, of the lying through a very intimate, personal way, because I thought that's where the reader would feel most empathy and connection, right? Obviously, lying is happening on a political level, but if you're writing about a political liar, it doesn't hit people the same way it does as a personal betrayal.
No, not like when it's personal, and when it's around the feelings around a death as well. So we begin with this, amazing, shocking loss that this man that everybody loved is dead, and then the secrets start to come out. Right. Would you do us the huge favor of reading the first page of that for us, and a little bit more until you find a comfortable,
natural place,
a natural place to stop.
All right, I'm happy to do that. I will do my best to give it some verve. Chapter 1, Annie. I nearly died the day we met. It was February, just over 3 years ago. I was in Mammoth for a ski trip with my best friend, Bella. On day 1, Bella wiped out on her second run. The next morning, nursing a sore wrist and a lump on her head, she said she wanted to take it easy. When I came back to our condo from the slopes midday to check on her, she informed me she was hitching a ride back to LA with another friend. I couldn't really be angry. She felt like shit and she wanted to go home. She volunteered to pay for her half of the rental and told me I should stay, ski, and mingle, as she toted her suitcase out the door with her good hand. I stayed. I skied. I didn't mingle. I was protecting my battered heart. A man about whom I had been foolish enough to entertain happily ever fantasies had proved to be a serial cheater. This bruising realization, just as we had neared our first anniversary, had led to Bella's suggestion of a few days in Mammoth, a girls' trip, now a solo retreat. I tried to embrace it. I skied hard, came back to the condo, braved the cold to make it out to the hot tub on the deck, cooked and consumed huge bowls of pasta mixed with decadent, chunky lumps of butter and generous sprinkles of Parmesan cheese. I passed out early, exhausted, and slept deeply.
And we're just short of where all the excitement happens. But I love this intro to Annie because we immediately are in love with this woman. She's already been through a hard time, and then she's gonna meet Justin.
Yeah. So it's funny, when I sent this, turned this book into my editor, one of her comments in the margins was about that, what Annie was eating. That's my favorite meal.
Definite comfort food, right?
Right. Exactly. Right? Yeah. And that choice of setting her up that way was very deliberate, right? Because I won't give you anything away, but she does meet Justin later in that chapter in a rather dramatic fashion.
Right.
And I thought it was important that we knew that she was already someone who was feeling bruised, because I feel like the fact that she was, in a way, made her more susceptible.
Absolutely.
That if she had been feeling stronger, then maybe she would not have had the same reaction that she does have to this man.
Although, I do have to say this again, without spoilers, Justin is so freaking charming. It's like, the only reason that I knew that he was going to be a liar was because it was on the back of the book.
Well, I love that. I take that as a real compliment, because I think that, listen, I say this in the book, and I really think it's true. A good liar lies to themselves first.
Yeah.
They believe you in that moment. You have to be believing in the lie, right, even if 2 seconds later you don't. But that's how you really sell it. And, I did a lot of research about, various mental illnesses and disorders, and, sort of reconstructed him from, reverse engineered it, frankly. I knew what I wanted to achieve with the character, and then I picked aspects of mental illness that would conform to, what I wanted, this narcissistic, charming person. But, this also, frankly, comes from my years working in Hollywood, where there are a lot of narcissistic personalities, which shouldn't surprise anybody.
No.
But a lot of those narcissists who can turn a love light on you.
Oh.
And when you're bathed in it, you feel so magnificent that you would do anything for them. And when they turn it off, it is so cold. And, and so, like any writer, I drew from research, my own life, and extrapolation, as well as observation.
Right. Well, it paid off beautifully. So let's talk a little bit about how you started writing, because I'm intrigued by that. You guys, Nina is a very successful movie producer. I was looking you up, and I was like, oh my God, I know these movies. So she was the executive producer of The Wedding Planner and A House of Sand and Fog, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff in there. So I'm curious, you're a screenwriter, you're into movies and TV. What made you decide that you wanted to write novels?
Well, it was really a twofold thing, two things, confluence of two things. One was that, quite honestly, in the film and TV world, I was feeling too female and too old to be in the room. Very sexist business. Right. Again, no surprise.
No surprise.
And also an ageist business. And I had written a script that involved teenagers, and it got me 22 meetings. And when I went into rooms, I could see people's face fall that I was not a teenager. So I was feeling very disheartened about writing, and I had switched from producing to writing almost 10 years earlier. So maybe not quite that long, but 7, something like that. So I was really sad, because even when I had been not working as a writer, I always considered myself a writer. It was part of my identity. So I just felt like my love of craft was leaching out of me. Simultaneously with this sort of difficult period professionally, I got remarried in a midlife remarriage, and blended a family of 4 teenagers, which
God.
If you look next to the definition of insanity in the dictionary, there's a picture of me after doing that, because it all went fine.
Brave woman, very brave.
Went fine up until a point, and then and I can talk about this because we've since healed a lot of things, and I've spoken to my stepson about this, and he knows I talk about it, but he just was having no part of this, and he wouldn't come to the house when my kids were here, and he, it changed everyone's custody schedules, and he was rude to me, and he was rude to my children, and it was unbelievably stressful. And my husband and I went away for a weekend down to Laguna. Remember when we could go away for weekends?
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be a weekend of like us getting back on track with cocktails on the beach and, hot times in the hotel room. And And we were also supposed to talk about what to do about my stepson, and that we couldn't, both of us were so afraid of the conversation. It caused so much tension that we just didn't get to it all weekend. And also the weekend did not cooperate at all. We had brought beach clothes and it was freezing. We went to the movies to get warm. We couldn't be outside. Like everything about it was just off. But the day we were leaving, we were supposed to drive back to LA. And I was standing on our balcony looking at our beautiful ocean view that I hadn't been down to the beach all weekend. And I looked over at my husband, who was lying on the bed with one hand flung back. And for the briefest second, I just imagined him with a knife in his stomach.
Oh.
And I had a notebook and I sort of scribbled down the scene of it wasn't me. It was just a woman in a hotel room with a man with a knife in his stomach. And I took that home, and that became my first novel, Just Fall. That's the opening of that book. So I started writing on weekends every Sunday because my stepson began to find commonality with my son over football. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a football fan, but I thought, well, I can be in the house while they're watching football, make sure no one's killing anyone.
Right.
And at the same time, I'm just going to work on this book for myself, just to reclaim my love of writing. So it took me about 1.5 years, just working on Sundays. I didn't tell anyone I was doing it because I didn't want people to say, how's that book coming? And,
right. That's the word.
Right? And I'm like, I have no answer for you. I haven't looked at it in months, but I just kept steadily going. And then it was done. And it was very freeing for me. It had achieved what I wanted. I reclaimed my love of writing. I threw structure out the window. I tried all kinds of crazy structural things because film and TV is so structured. I wrote from 3 different voices. I wrote part of it, the present day in a linear structure, and then backstory in a non-linear structure. Like I thought, this is just totally me. And then I gave it to a few friends, and admittedly, my friends are in the business. But within 3 weeks, I had been signed by a really great agent in New York, and she sold it at auction to Ballantine. And wow. I have not looked back since. I published that book in 2016, The Burial Society in 2018. In January, the second book in that installment, in that series, The Empty Bed, and now Convince Me.
What was the first book? What's it called?
The first book is called Just Fall. It's about a woman who on the day of her wedding discovers that her husband is a contract killer. And wow. She's told that she has to go to the Caribbean and kill someone if she wants to save his life. And
oh my gosh.
Again, it's funny because I had gone into this midlife remarriage with all this optimism, and then found myself in a lot of friction because of the blending of the families. And so while that book is not about my life, it's also, of course, completely about my life. Right.
Right. I hear that. Although, how does your husband feel that you had the image of him lying on the bed with the knife in his belly?
Well, he says he's very grateful I write, because otherwise he might actually find himself with a knife in the belly. So mostly I think he's grateful.
So by the way, I can totally relate. We did the blended family thing as well, although my 2 were younger, so it was not quite, and his didn't come live with us straight up. So, right. But it was hard enough.
It's challenging. I mean, right. But I always look at it this way: either it'll be a good time or a good story. Right. So
absolutely, writers. I always tell people that too. If you're going into a bad situation, I'm like, well, at least there'll be great writing fodder, and right. I do it at funerals. I do it everywhere.
Everywhere. Me too. I drink it all up. I say that writers are kind of, life vampires. We're just like, we just take, and I don't ever take anything exactly. I always find inspiration and turn my lens and make it something different, because I think that's part of craft. But if we did, because here's the thing, and this actually gets me really excited, because the reason I think that fiction is so powerful is because there are always multiple perspectives, right? Any first person narration is inherently an unreliable narration, right? Any third person narration is basically through the author's lens, right? But I feel that through that fiction is where you get true emotional truth, right? It doesn't matter that the details are constructed and false. I think if I'm doing my job, what I'm doing is getting to that real emotion that is sort of embedded in these different details, but is applicable to the reader in their own lives and their own emotions.
Right, absolutely. And then where you're at as a reader is always fascinating too, the way that you read a book. You might read it once now and get one thing out of it, and then read it again in a different emotional place, and it's a very completely different story. So
right, absolutely.
I love that magic there of the way the book and the reader connect, and then it becomes something else again from what we wrote, which is
right. Well,
fun.
which is always why it's interesting, although sometimes scary, to read reviews, because
sometimes you think they didn't even read your book. It's
right, you're like, what?
What book are you reading?
Right, but I agree, like with the concept of the death of the author, right? Once you've put it on the page and it's out there, it is up to anyone to, the reader then has to decide how they interpret it, right? You have no more control. You have to let go of it. It's funny because when I go back to my own books, sometimes I'll go, what, I wrote that? I don't remember actually writing that.
Right. That's the other thing too, is it just kind of slips away and you don't remember, which is another absolutely fascinating thing. I'm also interested in you have a group, and this comes out of, I'm guessing, out of the ageism and all of those other things that are
all the isms. Yeah.
All the isms. Yeah. The Virginia Woolf, the Wolf Pack.
The Wolf Pack, yeah. So I work with an organization called the Humanitas Prize, which is an organization that rewards writers. For the last 3 years, I ran their college fellowship program where we gave $20,000 cash checks to, well, not cash, but checks to writers, student writers in drama and comedy categories. And that's an annual prize. And but Humanitas also recognizes writers working across different fields, movies, film, plays. And as sort of an offshoot of that, this group formed called the Wolf Pack, named after Virginia. It's a very loose organization of women. It's all women. It's writers, showrunners, and producers. We really have only two main goals, which are community and mentorship, although and support, right? So it's, when I sold a TV project to a particular network, I was able to call someone from the pack who I didn't know and say, give me the skinny on what it's like behind the scenes there. And right. So it's really just about, creating an old girls network, basically.
I love it.
And we meet infrequently, but it's always really powerful because everyone's really honest about their experiences and really works to help each other.
Right. Well, and I love that you're doing that. That is one of the things that gets me into rage writing every now and then. Is the ageism thing really gets me. I actually, as my Carrie Schaefer self, I have a series of books I'm writing where I have a main character who's a former. It's all paranormal made up stuff, but she was a special paranormal investigator. But she's turning 60 and she's too old for them, right? So, and it came out like publishers had trouble with it too. She's too old. I'm like, no, she's not, and readers love her.
Well, it's interesting because convinced me, there is one perspective, Justin's mother, who is a woman in her 60s, and in a way, I felt almost writing her was an act of rebellion. Right. For the same reason. And
she's
I think if she had been the
character.
Thank you. But if she hadn't been balanced by the perspectives of two characters in their 30s, I wonder if I would have had the same pushback. Is there, part of me, because I'm always thinking about a potential television or film sale, right? Part of me thought, well, there are a lot of great actresses in that age range who actually mean something, who probably don't have a lot of great roles. And this is a great role.
Oh,
right?
it would be, is a movie role? that would just be.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about it, we'll see.
Yeah.
Early days, but I sold my first 3 books to television. None of them have made it on the air yet, but that's just the odds of film and TV. It's just you keep plugging. Yeah.
Well, I know, because it's always the dream. I was just talking to my agent today. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
How are we doing with that? Pitching my stuff to, the movie or the TV people. And she's like, oh, it's hard, which, it is.
What isn't hard, right? I mean, writing books is hard. Anything worthwhile is hard. It's just
That's true.
Right?
That's true.
It's hard is never a reason not to do anything, in my opinion.
No, absolutely not. And again, though, there's that. I love the drive. I love the way you described, rage writing your book, because it was such a deep well of something that needed to be expressed, and having that come out. I'm delighted to have read this one. Now I have to go back and read the rest of them, because now I have a new author to read, which is always fun. I do love my thrillers. So.
Well, my Burial Society series is about a woman who runs a private witness protection program on the dark web, and helps whistleblowers and abused women and children escape their dangerous situations and sets them up in new lives. And I say she's my badass avatar, because I go to marches and sign petitions, and she goes out and just takes care of business, makes things happen. So very fond of her. We'd love it if you would check those out too.
Oh yeah, hey, absolutely. Oh, once I found somebody who I like, I have a tendency. Do you do that too? Like, I tend to go back from the beginning and just read everything.
And that's sort of great. Like when I discovered Kate Atkinson, then was one of my favorite authors. When I discovered her, then I went back and read everything, and it was interesting because you could also see her development as a writer over the years. Because I came in sort of late to that discovery.
Well, and I love that you're doing it a little bit late. That's
I've done a lot of things in my life, and also I will say this, that I don't really believe in a bucket list, but publishing a book had always been something I had wanted to do, right? So always in the back of my head. So I think when I set out to write the book, I thought, all right, well, if anything happens with this, I'll at least own the IP. If nothing happens with it, I'll at least reclaim my love of writing, and I'll have achieved something for myself. And, then I got lucky. And
that love of writing is huge. It has to be the reason. I always tell people who are getting into this business, it has to be the reason you do it. You're not guaranteed any success. You have to do it because you love it.
Well, and also for me, it's how I process the world. If I'm not writing, like the first 6 weeks of the pandemic, I couldn't write, and I was terrified. I thought, I'm never going to write again, and then how will I ever figure anything out? Because that's the only way.
Right.
But it's come back, and I'm working on a new book now, which I'm really excited about.
Can you tell us what you're working on, or is it still, some people can't talk about it early?
Well, I can talk about it a little bit. It's another psychological thriller. It's called Privacy, probably coming next summer, if I, keep writing as fast as I'm writing. Once again, it's coming from, not really from rage, but asking questions about a couple of different things. One, how much grief we can bear, which I think is pretty topical. Two, what the loss of privacy is doing to us. We're in each other's homes. There's, good about that, and there's bad about that. And also the pervasive violence that surrounds women in our culture, that pervasive sense, a sort of a tertiary theme. But once again, I will take all these themes and I will wrap them up in a character-based poppy thriller that you can digest at the beach easily.
It's really, what I'm getting from you, and I know the book that I read, it's kind of empowering women is going to be part of something that is going to come into your books, I'm guessing.
Yeah, that's I am an empowered woman in my role as an educator. I really try to not just empower women, but empower people.
Right.
But I feel that I feel like women have to help each other and help. In particular, there is this old boys network, and women get things done. It's just
I love it. Thank you for being here today so much. This has been awesome.
You're welcome. I would like to plug one thing before I go.
Yeah, do that. And we need to tell people where you're going to be and all that. Sorry.
Yeah. I would. What I'd like to plug is, please go read my books. If you like them, please give me stars. If you don't like them, you never heard of me. But it is important to authors, if you do like their work, to post on Amazon and Goodreads. Also, if you go to my website, which is ninasadowsky.com, you can sign up for my dispatch, which is Cheerfully Dark Dispatches from the Mind of Nina Sadowsky. which has pivoted to from the resolutely resilient mind of Nina Sadowsky for the pandemic. But I offer writing tips and recommendations, and I promote out other authors very freely there. I have a column called Hollywood Decoded, where I answer questions about Hollywood. And also through my website, I'm going to be announcing very soon a short story contest. 500 words on the subject of liars and lies, and I will publish the winner in the Dispatch, so it'll reach my audience of about 8,000, and also there'll be a swag bag of books and gifts from me. So, I'm really interested. I did this for the Burial Society. I did a contest about secrets, and I completely loved the responses. I read them blind, so I don't know who they're from.
Right.
But it was fascinating and a lot of fun. So I hope people will.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. And so your website is ninasadowsky.com.
Yeah, very simple, just spelt like my name.
And if you're listening and not watching, that's Nina. I'm glad it's Nina. I was going to ask you if it's Nina or Nina, and I forgot. So I was like, I'm glad I've been doing that right. Nina, Nina, Sadowsky, SADOWSKY.com. And then you're also on Facebook.
I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, Twitter. You can follow me everywhere. And all my links are, again, on the website to follow.
Awesome. Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah. And thank you again. Thank you for listening. I'm going to be back. I've got 2 shows this week. So because we rescheduled, I had Megan Collins was supposed to be on last week with her awesome new thriller, which is called Behind the Red Door. Our interview got put off because the hurricane that went through left her without electricity for a few days. So we're on Friday. Please pop back in and join us then for that fun interview. And follow Nina on all her places. Go to her website. That sounds like a really super fun contest. I think I'm going to have to go look at what you got going on there too. So
all right, very good.
Best of luck with the new book as well.
Thank
and
you.
I will be reading and popping reviews up around all the places. So
great. Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks for coming. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.